Hello and welcome back again to That Tracks F1 podcast. I'm glad you could join me. Are we all excited for this weekend for the Miami Grand Prix? It's been too long, yet again. I always seem to be saying this, that it's too long a wait. But we have, of course, had this enforced break. But I'm so glad it's back. I really, really have missed it. There's lots and lots to discuss. There's new Grand Prix on the calendar. There is all sorts going on before we even get to the meat and bones of the Miami Grand Prix. So, before we start all that, can I please ask, as I always do, could you please give us a like, a subscribe, a follow on social media. Links to our social media are in our show notes. I'd really, really appreciate it, guys. And this is your chance as well, especially on social media, to feedback to me about anything you'd like me to talk about, anything you'd like me to shut up about, and any suggestions you've got for upcoming shows. Thank you. So, as I'm sure you've all heard, some what I would consider to be really good news. The Turkish Grand Prix is back on the calendar from 2027, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. I always love the Turkish Grand Prix, and this is a 5-year agreement. Turkish Grand Prix originally we had from 2005 right the way through to 2011, and it was a big fan favourite as well as a driver favourite. It's a really technical track, it's got elevation, it's interesting to watch. You'll see the famous Turn 8 and why it's famous. The whole track is spoken about with reverence in similar ways to the way people speak about Spa. So yeah, really, really happy to see that. Date-wise, there's been no announcement yet as to exactly where Turkey will get slotted into the current calendar. Yes, we lose Zandvoort, we lose the Dutch Grand Prix next year, which in my opinion is a shame. But we're already getting Portimao in Portugal. So although we know which tracks we're getting next year, we don't particularly know in what order. I had a quick look back over the years that we had the Turkish Grand Prix to look at what dates and which months of the year it was traditionally running. And I had it in the back of my head, it was usually the summer months. And when it first started out, it was August for the first 3 years. Then it was May, June, May again. And then in 2020 and 2021, it was November and October respectively. But obviously, that was a very different year due to COVID. But traditionally, Turkey's been run in the more summer months, May, June and August. So I think we'll probably be looking around about there again. Although the possibility is there that it could be one of the later Grand Prix, but I doubt it. I think it will be something you'll see possibly even slot in around where Zandvoort did sit. But yeah, for those of you a bit newer to F1, I think you will enjoy the Turkish Grand Prix. It's always been a very good one to watch. Now, this will bring next year's calendar up to the maximum of 24 races. And I know there's been interest from other countries. There was talk about an Indian Grand Prix, a Thai Grand Prix, and I don't know, there is a lot of interest from other countries and they're going to have to be considered at some point. So I'm wondering if in the future we're going to see more tracks go on a rotation, like from next year, Spa and Barcelona are going on rotation. So I guess that's something they could bring in. I'm not completely against the idea of rotating tracks. Obviously, personal preference comes into it. I would rather Spa had not gone on rotation because that is one of my favourite tracks. So selfishly, I would have liked that to have been a permanent fixture. There are other tracks. I'm not going to open the can of worms by saying which ones right now, but there are tracks that I could quite happily see on rotation. And one or two that I wouldn't cry about if they disappeared altogether. So that's maybe a discussion for another time. In other news, some of the teams have been using their filming days to try out some new components. Mercedes have done a filming day. They seem to concentrate mostly on Dorian Pan driving the W12, which was absolutely amazing to see. And she looked like she had an absolute whale of a time. For those of you who don't know who Dorian Pan is, she won the Formula Academy championship last year. Very accomplished woman driver. And she looked like she had an absolute blast driving that Mercedes. And they also had the W17 on track, the current car. And we're doing one or two things with the start procedure, I think, because this is really the only chink in the armour for Mercedes is their starts are not great. So as I say, Mercedes have not really done an awful lot. I can't seem to find anything on why it is, but they're not bringing their big update package until the Canadian Grand Prix. As I touched on in the last episode, McLaren are bringing their update package and they seem to be very happy with what they're bringing, so we're going to see how that unfolds. Ferrari has had a filming day and the Macarena wing has made yet another appearance. It has been altered. Some of the end plates on it look a lot more rounded out, a lot less blocky, and there's a little pillar, like a little pillar in the middle of the wing now, which they're trialing. So I don't know whether we'll see at any point Macarena wing in a race anytime soon. I mean, surely we will before the end of the season, but it's interesting to watch that development. As I've said before, I'm always a bit concerned with Ferrari that they get almost 99% of the way there with their car and then they just scrap it and start again. And they have said that the car they're bringing to Miami is 50% of the car they've had so far. They have changed so much, front wing, etc. So let's hope that it's all going to go in a positive direction for them because, as I've said before, lots of respect for Fred Vasseur. I do think he knows what he's doing if you leave him to it and let him get on with it. So let's see. Red Bull have also debuted a new rear wing, which is similar to the Macarena wing that Ferrari have. It doesn't go through the full 360 like the Ferrari rear wing does. It's more of a 180. It kind of turns the other way up. And apparently this is to create lift and to reduce drag. But realistically, I don't know how much drag that will reduce, but I guess we'll see. So it could be that we're going to see a good step forward from Red Bull this weekend. Speaking of this weekend in Miami, I have to say, generally speaking, Miami is not one of my most favourite races. I kind of can't get on board with all the glitz and the glam that goes with it. Having said that, I've got two really great memories from Miami, and in a way, neither of them are actually anything to do with the racing. Well, one is and one isn't. 2024, it was lovely to witness Lando finally getting that first win. And that absolutely opened the floodgates, didn't it? Because in 2024, he then went on to almost take the championship away from Max Verstappen. And then obviously last year, he got his championship. It really, really was like that first step on the ladder for him. And once he found he could walk, he really did run. So yeah, that was a great thing to see. And last year, this is the one that's not really related to the racing, but absolutely sticks in my memory and often gets talked about in my household, was the Lego Drivers Parade. I have to say, that was a triumph on Miami's part. I laughed so hard. It was a brilliant idea to start with. I think those cars and the amount of time and dedication that it took to build those cars was incredible. But the cherry on the cake for me was the absolute joy of the drivers when they were racing around in these Lego cars. Gasly's laughter, Lando's laughter, all of the drivers just so enjoying themselves, being super competitive, of course, because they are racing drivers, but just having that amount of fun. I think that was absolutely brilliant to witness. So hats off, Miami. I really, really did enjoy that. Now, when it comes to the serious stuff with the racing, as with last year, I fully expect it to be a one-stop race. The tyre compounds this weekend are the C3 is the hard, C4 is the medium, and the C5 is the soft. So I don't foresee any particular changes there. Last year was a pretty decent race, if I remember rightly, especially the first part of it. We saw some really good fights between Max Verstappen, who was on pole, and Lando, even going into like the first corner. We saw good scraps between Verstappen and Piastri. And yeah, I remember it being quite a lively race last year, and it was victory for Oscar last year. And Lando came through to take second, so it was a really good, strong McLaren 1-2 last year. Not 100% sure that we're going to get a really strong McLaren 1-2 this year, but not to give away too much from my predictions yet, I do think that we will see a far more competitive McLaren this weekend, but enough said about that for now. I'm going to go out on a limb now with my predictions. And as I already mentioned, it really is a little bit like going back to square one. It's almost like being back in Australia and going, well, I really have no clue, because apart from rumours, we have nothing to go on. Yes, I have a little bit more to go on now. We know that Mercedes are right out there in front, but there's lots of factors to factor in this weekend. The start procedure has been changed and taken away Ferrari's advantage at the start. I don't think we're going to see Ferrari like roaring off into the distance again. Teams have got updates and upgrades. There's a lot gone on. Thankfully, the FIA have seen fit, with it being a sprint weekend and there normally only being one free practice, to extend that free practice duration from the 60 minutes that it normally is to 90 minutes to give teams just that little bit extra time to get on top of things, which I think is an excellent idea. But I'm expecting, to some degree at least, for things to be a little bit mixed up. And while I don't think the pecking order will change drastically, I think it will change. So the predictions again, contain more than a little bit of guesswork. So starting with sprint quali, I have got in 5th place Charles Leclerc. I am very willing to accept that I could be very, very wrong, and the whole Ferrari upgrade that they're bringing in could turn that thing into an absolute rocket ship, and Leclerc could be on pole. But until I see it, I'm not going to quite believe it, because we've been here before with Ferrari, as I've said. So for now, I'm going to play cautious, and I'm putting Charles down in 5th for sprint quali. 4th for sprint quali, I have got Lando Norris. I think we saw in Japan that there was a definite step forward from McLaren, and we know that Lando quite likes this track, so I'm fully expecting him to be probably at least 4th on the grid. In 3rd, I have got George Russell. Really, this is just vibes. I'm expecting the Mercedes to go well. Really didn't know where to put George, didn't really know where to put Kimi, so I've settled on George Russell, 3rd on the grid for the sprint, with Kimi Antonelli 2nd on the grid for the sprint. Now, pole for the sprint, again, because I think big strides have been made and he impressed so much last race, I have got Oscar Piastri for sprint pole. I think that he is going to come hot out the blocks this weekend. I have a feeling that McLaren are going to carry on that forward momentum. I think Oscar's going to carry on that forward momentum from the last race, and I think he's going to pop it on pole. So we will see. When it comes to the sprint itself, working backwards again from 5th, just a little feeling I've got when it comes to the concerns I have around how consistent Antonelli can be. I have got Antonelli in 5th. Yes, that means I think he's going to lose 3 places from where he qualified for the sprint to where he'll finish up. I'm just a little bit not sure about Kimi at the moment, which flies in the face of what everybody else seems to think, because everybody else seems to think he's on this incredible roll and he's going to walk it and he's going to get the championship, and that while George will give him a run for his money, Antonelli's basically got this in the bag. But think back to this time last year, even later into the season than we are now, wasn't that being said about Oscar Piastri? Didn't Oscar, in the early part of the season, the first third to almost a half of the season, look like a dead cert for the championship? Just don't know. And I'm just a little concerned with Kimi being quite young and showing those signs of inconsistency in his rookie year, that he might drop off occasionally. So that's where I've got Kimi in 5th. Leclerc, I've popped in 4th. Again, for the reasons I went into with the sprint quali position. In 3rd, I have got Lando Norris. In 2nd, I have got George Russell. And yes, I think that Oscar could take the win in the sprint as well as the pole position. I think it's Oscar's weekend. So let's see. Let's see how many I get right this time. Now, when it comes to the actual main race, qualifying, again, sat down, wrote things down, swapped them around, crossed them out, but I've got there. In qualifying, in 5th, I have got Lewis Hamilton. Again, I'm still very on the back foot with Ferrari. Need to see it to believe it. I don't think that Lewis or Charles will be too far behind, despite my reservations about the huge upgrades that Ferrari are bringing, and the fact that I think it's either going to propel them all the way to the top or backwards at a rate of knots, and there will be no in between. Ironically, I've put them in the in between of those two things by saying Hamilton will qualify 5th and Charles Leclerc will qualify 4th. Qualifying 3rd, I have got Lando Norris, again keeping up that theme of McLaren taking steps forward, and I've got Oscar Piastri qualifying 2nd for the same reason. I think pole this week will go to George Russell. He's absolutely got to come out and stamp his claim on this championship. As I've said, there is no way that Antonelli's got this championship in the bag, but Russell really, really needs to start stamping his claim. He really, really needs to get out there, start sticking it on pole, start winning. He's been a little unlucky. It's not really all been down to George. He's had some poor luck, and I think it's time for that to turn around now. And I really do want to see a good fight between, if it's going to be Antonelli and Russell fighting for the championship, I want to see that. I want to see them fight for it. But yeah, I do think that George is going to come back after this enforced break and basically say, no, hands off, this is mine. So I do see him being on pole. Now, when it comes to the race, having said all that, it will sound like in places I'm contradicting myself. But I also have to hedge my bets a little bit. You know, it would be nice to get something right. In fifth, I've got Antonelli. Again, I just don't quite feel it's going to be his weekend. I get the feeling that he will, despite all this work that they've done on the starts and there's the whole new start procedure, I really do think that Kimi really, really needs to concentrate on like getting these starts pinned down. In the same way that we saw with Lando in the earlier parts of last year. I don't know if it's a pressure thing. I don't know quite what it is. But Antonelli is struggling with his starts, and I think it was going to cost him dear in the race, and he's going to recover, but he's going to recover to fifth. In fourth place, I've got Charles Leclerc, who, bless him, I just seem to have popped him sort of fourth or fifth and left him there all weekend. But again, as I keep saying, I'll believe it when I see it with the Ferraris, so I'm just putting them where I think they could be. In third place, and this is where I'm contradicting myself a little bit, I've actually got George Russell. I'm not confident about that. I do think there's every chance that he could actually take the win, especially if he comes out and sticks it on pole. But now, maybe this is a little bit fantastical, and this is me really, really going out on a limb. But every so occasionally, I just feel the need to say, no, I'm really going to go for something a little bit out there. And I have actually gone for a McLaren 1-2 in the race, because I am still on the hype train for McLaren. I do think there is a very, very good chance that we could see something very special from them this weekend. And I think that, again, it's Oscar, it's Lando. It could finish Oscar Lando, it could finish Lando Oscar. So I have put them down in the order that I suspect, but it really could go either way. It's so difficult to choose between the two McLaren boys. While they have lots of differences in the way that they drive and the way that they approach things, and lots of differences in the little, not faults, but in the areas that they need to improve on, they are, to all intents and purposes, extremely evenly matched. So it's always very, very difficult to choose between the two of them. I have, however, decided to go a little bit further out there, and I am going to say that it's going to be Lando's win. I just think Lando is really, really due some good luck, and that's taking nothing away from Oscar. It could easily be an Oscar win. Like I said, feel like it's Oscar's weekend. And I think he was robbed of that win a little bit by the safety car in Japan. He may not have won it. I think he could have. And I do think it's going to make for an interesting race because George is on a big push. George needs the win. Oscar's got the bit between his teeth. He needs the win. They all need the win. But those guys especially, and I think it could make for some very, very interesting racing. So those are my main predictions this weekend. I don't have a lot of confidence in them, I have to say, because really until we can see how these updates and upgrades and the tweaks to the regulations have affected the cars, it's up in the air. So I could be absolutely, completely wrong. I could be bang on right. We'll have to wait and see. And not to leave anyone out, when it comes to the other teams on the grid, obviously for Haas and Cadillac, this is their team's home Grand Prix, being an American Grand Prix. Haas are doing extremely well so far this season. They've already got a very respectable 18 points, 17 of which have been scored by Ollie Behrman. You've heard me go on at length about how amazing I think Ollie has been this season, and I'm hoping that he's going to bounce back, and I'm sure he will, from his bad accident last time out. We really do need to be seeing Esteban finding his feet a little bit this season. He's definitely capable of scoring points for the team. So I'm fingers crossed for Esteban that this weekend's going to be a turning point for him, and he'll be adding to that point tally. It's also the home Grand Prix for Cadillac. And I don't know if you've seen it online, but Cadillac are bringing a special livery for Miami. They've stuck with their monochrome colouring. And when I initially saw it from the side, I thought, yeah, it's okay. I must admit, I do like the front wing. I think that looks very, very effective. And there's a lovely little touch on the rear wing where it says USA. So if you do get time, go and have a look at that online. It is quite effective. As for Alpine, they'll be looking to continue their amazing run of form. I am pleased to say that pre-season I predicted Alpine to really, really step up the order, and they've definitely delivered so far. They are one of very few teams to have both cars finish all of the races and sprints so far. And that obviously is down to the fact that they made the very wise decision to go with the Mercedes engine this year. And they just need to really just keep improving the chassis to ensure that they're keeping up with the rest of the pack. Audi have said that they are bringing some mechanical and aero updates to Miami, and Matteo Binotto has said that he's very happy with the progress that's been made. Racing bulls. I touched on this when I did the recent episode about the tweaks to the regulations. They're in a bit of an unusual situation because they had actually decided to bring their first set of upgrades to Bahrain and then their second set of upgrades to Miami. So as Alan Permain has said, they're in a bit of a strange situation now that they're going to bring a set of upgrades to Miami this weekend that are immediately going to be replaced by the next upgrade that they'll be taking to Canada. I'm expecting to see good things from them going forward through the rest of the season. Aston Martin. I wish I had better news. I really do. Honda have said that there are going to be no major improvements to the power unit and that any upgrades they're doing to the engine will have no visible impact, which is, it's not what we wanted to hear, is it? It's not really looked like a particularly rescuable season for Aston Martin. Even if you're not an Aston Martin fan, nobody wants to see this. All that time, effort and money invested. Fernando hanging on in there, says he's the unluckiest man in F1. And although most drivers believe you make your own luck, I am beginning to believe Fernando when he says that because he really does have the most appalling luck. So I was very much hoping that, like I say, not a particularly rescuable season, but that we would see a steady improvement. They'd be up there scoring some points by the end of the season. But really, there never seems to be any good news for the Aston Martins, and that really is a shame. Now, moving on to the hit the mark and pull over in park sections. Very difficult this week. Well, in a way, kind of difficult to choose a hit the mark. And I've a little bit had to split it. And I know that's naughty. Because I really am supposed to pick a team or a driver. But I can't hype McLaren as much as I am doing going into this weekend and then give the hit the mark to someone else, to give it to a different team or give it to a different driver. I am going to have to say hit the mark will be McLaren this weekend. I really do think they are on for an absolutely fantastic weekend. Hope I haven't cursed you guys, but I do think that could be our hit the mark for this week. I do think that people will be talking about McLaren an awful lot this weekend. If it wasn't going to be McLaren, if I had to pick a different team, I probably would have gone for Williams because I do have yes, I know, Williams Gurley, here she goes. This is hopium, copium, whatever you want to call it. But I actually do think that the updates will work in their favour. I think they will have been working extremely hard, as all the teams will have done, but I think they'll be working extremely hard to play catch up now. And I think that we will see them a lot further up the grid in Miami. It's difficult to compare, I know, because of the change in regulations, but last year Miami suited the Williams quite well. I remember them battling right at the top of the midfield, right throughout the race, and for Carlos and Alex to be quite evenly matched. And I do think that with the updates and a little bit of luck, I think we could see a really big leap forward by Williams this weekend. So while I'm giving hit the mark to McLaren, I'm giving a hit the mark honorary mention to Williams. And you know full well when I do the review that if either McLaren or Williams have done well, I'm going to claim that I said it all along. So there you go. Argue with me. When it comes to pull over and park, I've actually got Mercedes. Just because a little bit that I think the bubble's kind of got to burst a little bit. But also I'm a little bit concerned that they're not really bringing their updates until Canada. So I think there's a little bit of potential for them to get slightly shown up this weekend. And that's really all I'm basing this on. Do I think Mercedes are going to have a terrible weekend and score no points? No, obviously I don't. You know that from the predictions I've made for the race and for qualifying and for the sprint. But by Mercedes' recent forms standards, I think we will see a little bit of a Mercedes drop off this weekend. But I guess we'll see. Like I've said, very difficult to predict anything this weekend. And I've done my best. And that's all I can do. So there you have them. That's all my predictions for this weekend. I'm just really excited for this weekend. So glad F1's back. And I'm really enjoying the fact that it's a sprint weekend, both this weekend and in a few weeks in Canada. And I know that sprint races divide opinion. And as you know, I've mentioned before, I actually quite like them. So I'm very happy. And here in the UK as well, it's a bank holiday weekend. And if you're not from the UK or not familiar with the UK, this is something we have a few times a year where you get Monday off from work. So you get a long weekend. Absolutely brilliant. Love it. So my weekend will be spent celebrating a birthday with family on the Saturday. Sunday, I'll be watching the race. And Monday, I would love to say I'll be relaxing with my bank holiday Monday like normal people do. But in reality, I'll actually be doing some work in the house because we're renovating at the moment. So there goes my rest. But I will be downing tools, obviously, for the F1. And I will also be back on Tuesday with a review of the Miami Grand Prix, where we can chat all things Miami, chat about everything that's happened, and we'll definitely be more informed about where everything has shaken out over the weekend. So enjoy your weekend, enjoy your F1, and I will see you on Tuesday. Do not forget the cheesy tagline in the meantime. That Tracks F1 podcast. Track the action. Join the fun. Bye, guys.